and Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
All eyes are on Trentside this week as attention turns to Nottingham Forest's first home match of this season's Europa League. There's perhaps nothing more special than a match under the lights at the City Ground, an historic stadium that has seen iconic moments over the years, from the club's first ever goal in the European Cup from Garry Birtles and Robertson's diving header against Cologne and all the way through to the UEFA Cup and Paul McGregor versus Lyon and that final goal at home in Europe from Steve Stone against Bayern Munich. Our fans in Seville last week were treated to a wonderful first 45 minutes and a fabulous Igor Jesus brace. And to come away with a point certainly felt great in the whole context of this being our first go at Europe for so long. But a win is crucial for Forest right now. Not just for this competition and getting us up the table, but for the wider value that victory will bring. The players want it. The fans are desperate for it. Ange needs it. Welcome to Talking Reds, our Nottingham Forest podcast. I am your host, Greg Oram, along with my co-host in Oklahoma, Richard Spray. With us on the panel, it's the Statman, Danscape, and Raf the Random Pundit. All ready for Nottingham Forest versus Denmark's FC Midtjylland in the Europa League.
Went to Zinchenko, that's a little bit short for Anderson, somebody got there. Douglas Luiz now plays it on, promising, slides it through Jesus! And Nottingham Forest level almost straight away. And on his debut in European football, the former Bolton Bono striker Igor Jesus equalises the Forest.
Here is Douglas Luiz to take the corner, right-footed, in swing.
Ooh, yes!
It's 2-1 Forest! And it's Igor Jesus again! Jesus scores!
Hi there, guys. I think Danscape said you might have lost me through the intro, so maybe I'm popping in and out. Perhaps, hopefully, you can hear me now. Can you hear me now, guys? You can hear
me
now.
Yeah, it was the first 10 seconds or something.
First bit. Okay, well, I apologise if that's the case. Forest are back in Europe and they face a very Danish problem this week, FC Midtjylland. Previously, perhaps known as masters of set pieces and so on. In a nutshell, today on this episode, we're going to ask, how do we beat any set piece routines they throw at us? Who should start for Forest? And what would a win mean for our season? If you're in the comments, please let us know that you are here and we'll drop in as many as we can. And like and subscribe, please. Follow us on all your social media channels and all your podcasts and all your everything. It would be really great. I have been told off. I had a phone call that came through from Sergio. Apparently, I've been overusing the word super. Everything has been super excited and super this and super that. So I've been told off. So if you hear me with a super, then I've been instructed, I've got to use this. So I'll be monitoring myself because I'm the man with the sound effects. So I'm very excited for this match coming up. I will be in attendance. Richard Spray, I'll come to you first on this one. General thoughts on the match as we go into this first home match under the lights. How are you feeling?
Yeah, probably similar to what I felt in other matches where I feel like we're always giving ourselves a chance. We're always putting ourselves in a position to potentially take the 3 points in the league and take the win in a Europa match. But it's the clinical nature of finishing, putting the ball in the back of the net. It's questionable. Not switching off and letting ourselves have mental lapses to allow goals to occur. But hopefully all that converges in this one, right? And we stop the rot, we stop all the negativity, get the momentum back, seize that so that going into Newcastle we can pull a bit of a surprise, even though they're languishing towards the latter end of the table as well. They're not having the best of seasons either yet. So hopefully that gives us an opportunity, and it starts with this one. It starts with seeing through the entire match. To your point, Greg, getting a full 90 out of the boys and seeing that all unfold before our very eyes. So that's what I'm hoping happens. I have a lot of belief that it can happen, right? That word believe we like to use in relation to Forest. Hopefully we get the chance to see that this coming Thursday. I know Chris Aylmer will be there as well. I know he's looking forward to it, and I think he feels, pretty positive even after a, not so great performance in the last match. So hopefully that's what you guys get to witness live.
Big Arn says, afternoon Reds, how you doing? And he's asking about whether Richard's going to be at the Chelsea match. It's not the Chelsea match. Richard's flying over and we will be in attendance at the Manchester United game together. So we'll tell you more about that as we get closer towards it. Brucey says, good day, mates. Good day there, Brucey. Nice to have you with us. As is Nate and Tim Shipman. And Steph Wilkinson says, morning all as well. Pat Brett says the problem is that we seem to not be able to hold on to a lead. That seems pretty accurate to me. And Nate, yeah, there's that word, something excited. That's right, I am indeed. Mark says, time for Ange to step up to the plate with a £2 donation into the pot. Thank you very much indeed to you, Wayway NFFC. Is that a swan carrying Ange migrating back to Australia behind you, Danscape? Because I have to say, you've pulled out a bit of a corker there, mate. Tell us about the swan. Tell us how you're feeling about Thursday.
And Angie's riding a swan there. That was when I did a preview on my blog for the Swansea Cup game, though. It's just randomly chosen that it's appeared here. It's not to do with trying to send him back to Australia yet. Anyway,
at least those swans are safe and they're not being eaten.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay. How have you ended up using the word super at this particular time of our forest adventure when we're anything but super? I don't know how you've managed to overuse that word.
I just keep saying I'm super excited, and super. It always seems to be super something, and I think I'm gonna stop using that word now. It feels like it's done.
At least you're not using another S word that the rest of X is using. So I guess that's an improvement. Rather hear super than the other one.
Go on, Dan.
Midtjylland, they're kind of an interesting team. I'm kind of interested to see how this game goes. You know, they've got a wolf as a logo, which is always a good sign of a team. They've got a manager called Thomas Berg, which is probably the most Scandinavian name you could make up if you were going to make up a name for their manager.
No, they don't have him anymore. He went in September.
It was up to date.
It was a recent change.
I'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
They've had a season where half their goals came from set pieces. They seem to be very much the Brentford kind of team that are trying to go out and find these players, gems from other parts of the world, and turn them into Europa League quality players. So I'm excited to see the game as a whole. I think obviously we'll come on to all the context around it for us. It's there for us to win, but I expect a very similar game to what we saw the other day. In terms of them, they'll come here to make life difficult. They'll try and be organised and compact, and they'll try and hit us on the break. So, we should obviously expect that kind of challenge now with the kind of team we are. So we just got to hope that we do something better about it than we did on Saturday.
Excellent. Raf, what are you thinking about the game in general going into this one?
I think it should be really interesting. I do think they'll be slightly more defensive minded than they are in their own league. And in their own league, it's kind of a bit Ange. Like they scored 2.5 goals a game. They let in more than 1 goal a game. Like it's when they're in the league, it's very flowing. But again, coming to the City ground, they'll probably, like Dan says, lock it up a bit tighter. For me, which I'll come on to, when you play counter-attacking football, what do you need? You need a striker that's lethal to put away the chances, and that's exactly what they do have, a striker that's bang in form. And so that's the bit that slightly concerns me and who we've got available.
Daz says, all right, lads, they have won 10 in their last 11. That's Midtjylland, I think, that Daz is talking about. But
normally, but yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel, Richard, that the City ground atmosphere is going to come into this in the European side? First home game for the Reds. Midtjylland don't bring many in terms of away turnout. In fact, there was more tickets released for this because they didn't take all their allocation. So does that matter for home advantage? Are you particularly concerned about the atmosphere on Thursday night? Because it's got a little bit tetchy, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I imagine it'll begin with the same level of energy and excitement to get everyone kind of buoyed up and wanting to see the result that we all anticipate we can get. As we've said, the best match is going to be the one that you worry about just because of the quality of that team and how they ended last season, being in, I think, the Conference League final last year. But I would in this particular situation, I think everyone, even though there's a lot of Ange out nonsense and noise out there, the reality is I think they're going to be ready for it to try to get everyone galvanized and ready to play and have that right tone and energy from the get-go. So I imagine it's going to be huge. I imagine it's going to make a big difference. Under the lights, as you said, always makes a difference, right? It creates an atmosphere and an aura that we need right now to back our manager and the boys to get that win. So yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's not, could that shift? Yeah, it could shift if all of a sudden things aren't going the way that we want them to go and they kind of follow the pattern we've seen, and then it might, the tone, and Dan's often spoke about that, right? But they've also played a match. I think they're playing a match. Was it last night or tonight?
Last night.
Yeah, so I mean they're going to be on less rest, so hopefully that works to our advantage. The Paul Morley stat and familiarity with the days of rest scenarios. So hopefully we leverage that and we can really work them over, because I'll tell you what, a 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 sort of victory, man, can you imagine the kind of positivity that's going to create for us going into our match versus Newcastle? It'll make a huge difference.
And it is something like that is needed, I think, to kickstart us, to get us going. We talked at length in the review episode about how long can we go on lamenting about the missed chances. It's time to put the ball in the back of the net. And as your thumbnail, Richard, so eloquently states, maybe we just need a little bit of target practice, mate. When we need Robin Hood with his arrows going into the bullseye. Big Arn says a pint and a baby Guinness offer stands for Man United. We will be there, Big Arn. We will be there. Okay, right. So it's the preview show, and we do like to pay a bit of attention to our opponents, and so we have to do this.
Send them back to East London! Send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
I'll tell you what, as well, just quickly before you start, it reminds me when we play that, just how much we're missing Ola Aina. I think his personality, both on and off the pitch, I'm sure that he's still in and around, but just that level of excitement, that level of energy from him, I think we missed that. So, God, I hope we can get him back in January on schedule. Okay, Raf, over to you, buddy.
No worries. Okay, cool. So this is quite an interesting one, having a look at them. And I actually just got deeper and deeper of going, oh, that's quite fascinating. When I was taking a look, not really knowing anything about them beforehand. But they're actually, they're doing well. And they're doing increasingly well in the league. I don't know if that was the reason why they had a managerial change. But if we start with the manager, because we kind of touched upon it. So they had this chap called Thomas Berg, and he was a bit of a wily old character. But as you can see, for those that are listening, the way that their games have gone in the league was it's draw-win, draw-draw, win-win-win, loss-win-win. And the new manager has been in, so he got off to a bad start with the one loss they've had in the season, but then they've gone on to rectify that with 2 wins. And the new chap that's come in is called Mike Tulberg. He's 39. And interestingly, when Dan was talking about kind of this Brentford vibe that they've got, he's such a Brentford vibe appointment, right? A very exciting young manager who stats-wise and data-wise and looking at them just going, yeah, he fits what we kind of want to do. Because his playing career was no shakes. He played 72 senior games, right, in his career, and not at like the highest level. He had a lone 7 games at Hearts, for example. But he then went into management and he went to Dortmund. Dortmund picked him up and he's been under the Dortmund system until he's gone here. He was in charge of their reserve team and then went to go, which is a promotion in Dortmund, up to the under 19 team. And then he actually was interim manager for 3 games back in January. And he did pretty well. One of them was a Champions League game, 2 league games, and he won the Champions League game and then won one and drew one in the league. So he's not a mug at all. And evidently, he seems to have this eye for management that's been recognised a bit more probably strongly than his playing career. But he's got youthful exuberance on his side, definitely for sure. Maybe this is a bit of transition of managers, but what we've seen under Midtjylland up until now is a huge plethora of change of formations. This season alone in the league, in just 10 games, they played 3-4-3, they played 4-4-2, they've played 4-2-3-1, they played 3-5-1, and close to 3-5-1, they played 3-5-1-1. Now, what you've got on the screen here is what the new manager's done. So if we're trying to guess what the new manager's done. So these are the 3 games in the league which he's been in charge for. And so his first game, he played that very familiar to us, 4-2-3-1, but then it seems to have gone to a back 3 with wing backs, 5 in midfield or 3 in midfield, depending if you're calling it a back 5 or a midfield 5. And then 2, either as 2 strikers up top, or a striker with someone that's kind of floating as a false 9 or a number 10 behind. So they have the ability to be able to change it up, which is why I think we probably predict for 3 at the back with wing backs. But I think we've just got to play what we want to play. Now, highlighting this up, though, what we do see is that if they are going to play what we think we're going to play, once again, and this is what I fear, there are 3 people in midfield, and we cannot just play 2 people in midfield against midfield 3. It always goes Pete Tong for us whenever we do this. So I really want us to play midfield 3 to match up with, I think, them loading the midfield quite heavily. So when we have a look at it and who's key, well, there's one name that appears on the team sheet that's going to strike fear into absolutely every Forest fan, and that is a certain Philip Billing. And he's gone back to the motherland. He is Danish, so he's gone back to the motherland, and so he is now slotted in, and he is their most expensive, most valuable player that they have. Well, actually, probably their striker is. He's kind of on a par a little bit with their striker. So he's sitting in the middle of midfield, but I've tried to call out a few other players that I think are quite key. But before I do this, their right winger has been so instrumental as to a lot of their success that they've had this season, Osorio. And he's been out the last couple of games. Now, he's due back, according to Transfer Market, in about 5 days' time. Now, how accurate that is, and could he be rushed back for this game, I don't know. But I don't think he'll be fully fit, even if he does come back. And a lot of good comes from that right winger. So that's quite a key miss for them. And then they've kind of got a coin flip of their left winger, who's definitely out. He's only 21, Gogorza. But it's not a massive miss for him, but he definitely would be a key person off the bench to freshen things up. Those are only 2 key injuries, really, I would say. The goalkeeper is settled of who they're going to have, of Olafsson. And then this is where they've got an interesting setup. They kind of mix up their defense quite a lot, even between their back 3 and their back 5. In there, their captain, Sorensen, but in this graphic, you're seeing as Beck, because he's like Beck Sorensen. He's their captain and a bit of a linchpin, and he's the only mainstay that sits probably in their defense. So getting on top of him, and whoever plays up top really needs to get the better of him, I would say. And I've circled another player in defense, Diao. Now, he's a really exciting 21-year-old defender that they've got in. They seem to have started using. The new manager started using him. He's worth about 7.5 million euros, which is actually top 5 value of players that they've got in their team. So it's actually quite interesting that he started to be used. But again, from an experience perspective, he's very skillful, but he's that kind of Murillo type of age when he was being used, and that's the potential to be able to get at them. When we go into midfield, you're definitely getting Billing that's going to be sitting in there. There's this Bravo chap who also sits in there. But there is one other person, Castillo, who the stats from midfield are very, very impressive. And he's the one that seems to slot, if they're playing a 4-2-3-1, he's the one that sits in that Morgan Gibbs-White slot. But when they're not playing that, he plays in the heart of that midfield. and actually pulls quite a lot of creativity and got the odd goal in him as well, which I'll come on to. But the two players that we really need to be worried about, Osorio as well if he's back, even though if he's not fully fit, is Simsier, who is there, can play as that kind of false nine. He can play in midfield. He can actually play on the right. He sometimes plays on the left. But he is that all-round kind of mobile creative issue that we've got there. And their striker, Franklunio, Duju, but he is literally a goal machine at the moment. And he actually creates goals as well as scoring them. And in the league, in 10 games, I think we'll come on to, I think off the top of my head, I think he's got 8 goals and 4 assists in 10 games in the league, right? So for me, those are really the key players. Where they sit, how they're doing in their league, they're actually gone upwardly mobile. They're up to second. They've got 21 points from their 10 games. We know how badly we're doing in the league. That's up there. But interestingly, if you look at squad value, right, we should be beating them. We're at home. We are nearly 10 times as valuable a squad as what they have. There really shouldn't be any excuses whatsoever for not beating these guys, right, when it comes down to it. So this is where I'm now. Oh, and that was the other thing, is just that point, whereas they played last night. So today is probably their rest day. And then after that, they are probably going to be on a plane, I would say, tomorrow. So I don't really know where their prep time is going to be for this game. Right, I am just ad-libbing a bit because my laptop has decided to freeze on me slightly. Give me 2 seconds. Right, I want that one. Okay, cool. And then hopefully this will change. Just catching up with itself. Oh, come on. Work. Right, I am going to quickly, if you stop sharing that, I'm going to stop sharing it and I'm going to get back to... Yeah, my laptop's not enjoying itself. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Oh, here we go. Right, got it. Right, let me reshare this very quickly. Sorry for the fail here, chaps. Let's go back. Let's share.
Don't do live TV, folks. Don't want their animals are kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here we go. Right, has that come up?
There we go.
All right, perfect. So when we're having a look at how good they've been, and these are kind of the league stats of where it is, that Osorio right winger that I was talking about is their standout player for this season, who's their right winger. He's nudging a score of like 7.84 on SofaScore, which is mind-bending for consistency over 10 games of what they've been doing. But coming in at second is their striker, who's just about on a 7.5 average rating. They've got 7 players that have got a score of 7 and above. And that Simsier character who I talked about, who's that fluid person in midfield, in the 10, maybe play left, maybe play right, he's got about 7.4. The next player is that their Sorensen, their defender, who's their captain. He's got about a 7.3 average as well. So they're playing well. They've got players that are on form, which we don't need to go and look at ours again. Look, it's not particularly great. But the interesting thing about them, over 10 games, they are multiple threats all over the pitch. If we have a look at the goals and assists they've got, and their striker's got 8 goals and 3 assists. Simsier is chipping in with 3 goals and 4 assists. The winger that's out has got 3 goals and 2 assists. And that Castillo, who's in midfield, he's got 2 goals, 2 assists as well. But they're sharing it across the whole team. In 10 games, they've got 11 different players who've scored and 11 different players who've assisted, which just shows how much on it we are going to have to be. No one can really have a bad game. Everyone's going to have to be on it because they've got useful players that can do stuff all over the pitch. But picking on the 3 players, just to have a look at these heat maps, this is where Simsier, it's really difficult to see where he's going to crop up. He's operated predominantly on the left, and you see the fact that he goes all up and down the wing, all into the middle of the pitch. He might be used on the right. He's taking set pieces from the left and the right as well. So, and you can see just through the density of the set pieces, I do think they play quite a lot down the left, especially they will do if Osorio is out from their right wing. Once again, going down our right-hand side. So Nico's going to have a devil of a job again, potentially. Castillo He's everywhere. He's helping out a little bit of defence, but he's predominantly sitting slightly more forward. But he's getting into the top of that middle third, and he's all across the top of that middle third. Not wide, but all across the middle section, kind of dictating where things are going to go and just making sure everything ticks. A little bit of that engine room. By the way, I haven't put up Billing's heat map, but it's basically Castillo's heat map, but absolutely everywhere. As much defense as much attack. He's absolutely everywhere. So between Castillo and Billing, there's a lot of work to manage in that midfield. Then let's take a very quick look, lastly, at the striker. So their striker, okay, he is lethal. You have a look at his where his heat map is. Quite a lot of it is in and around that 6-yard box, okay, our 6-yard box. So he likes to poach with a goal. But we saw this as well when we're looking at the Betis striker, is a lot of his time is right on that centre circle. So if you have a look at how much defensive work, it's not exactly Wood or someone that's coming back to do lots of defensive work, but he's waiting on the halfway line for them to be able to break and then cause damage, okay? And this is against Ange ball and us with very high up the pitch and pressing and getting up that press. That is something we definitely need to be aware of, especially if we don't have the mobility of Murillo. Maybe Murillo comes back, we'll discuss that. But we need mobility in the back line to be able to get to that. Right, that's where I am. Back to you guys.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that very detailed report. Gives us an idea about who our opponents are. So when you're watching the match on TV or if you're at the ground, keeping an eye on one or two of those players that Raf's pointed out, helps us to kind of see what they might do in terms of posing us a threat and posing us any difficulties. It does look as though the set pieces is where they're going to try and hurt us. I'm just going to come back to you, Richard, on this. I mean, we had a sincere problem with set pieces a year and a half ago. And we bought in Milenkovic. And lo and behold, last season, from the very off, we were all lauding just how good we were doing at managing set pieces. You know, we had gone from being really bad to being super good at set pieces.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, sorry. To being really good at set pieces in terms of defending them, that is, and also putting them in at the other end. Ange has got a really bad record when it comes to set pieces as well. I haven't got the stat in front of me, but since he's been in the Premier League, I think it's something like no one has conceded in terms of management any more set pieces than he has. And we saw it against Sunderland the other night. So is this solvable, Richard, or has this come down to, is it a coaching problem or is it a structural one? Is it a case of the personnel are letting us down, or is it a case of Ange setting us up to fail? Not to fail deliberately, but setting us up so that we are failing.
I don't know how many options you gave me there, but I'm going to say D, all of the above, probably. I would say I keep coming back to it. I think one of the values of last season that probably I think some of us have talked about, but I want to go back and look at the aerial dual win rate that Murillo had last season. I think there was a considerable exponential improvement in his game, some of which you can attribute to maybe being coached on the pitch and having Milenkovic help guide him on positioning and the way that he manages that. But from an athleticism standpoint and explosion standpoint, I'd probably say Murillo he's probably heads and shoulders above Milenkovic in that sense. Obviously, Milenkovic has the height factor, which clearly provides an advantage to him. I'm sure, and it was a focal point. It felt like certainly at the beginning of the season, it had to have been from a coaching standpoint because we know what it looked like the season before, a couple seasons prior. So. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's Ange's just he's not emphasizing that. Maybe he tends to, I'm not trying to give him excuses. I'm just trying to get my mind into what he's thinking. Maybe he tends to believe that the personnel that he has can do that just by virtue of who they are. Maybe that doesn't become an emphasis for him on the training pitch. Maybe he sees that the problem that we had last season or towards the end of last season, yes, there were some defensive frailties, but there was a lack of ability to score consistently. Especially from our forward line. So that probably is more prevalent on his mind. And we know that fits right into what he does anyway. That's just a dynamic he brings as a manager. But I do believe if you get Murillo back, I do think that adds. I think if you maybe consider bringing in and say, we'll get onto this in terms of selection, but maybe bringing Ryan Yates back in because Ryan Yates can do that pretty well in the box. Maybe it's that kind of situation that gives you a little bit of an edge, plus the Housery factor that we all know he brings in the middle and all of that. So there's these things that we could potentially do that can augment some of that and provide some of that. And way Ryan Yates operates anyway, he's a leader on the pitch, right? So he's going to be a guy shouting just like Milenkovic to get guys in position and to emphasize that and focus on getting themselves and where they're supposed to be when marking within the box. So yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it's kind of a combination of everything. Getting your best players back is always going to be a value. So hopefully that's the case for Murillo. Hopefully they bring him back in this one. If they don't, it is what it is, and we'll just have to navigate it. But I do think adding some more height and some more, sort of savvy in the box with a Ryan Yates might be a value.
Okay. Edward Y of Oz says if Forest can't beat Midtjylland, then ring the alarm bells. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Pat Brett points out that they did win 2-1 last night after going behind. I am the problem, says Ange better have his bags packed if we lose. Jackie Howarth is with us. Hi, Jackie. She says, well, I was feeling quite confident before Raf's show, not now. Now Raf has bigged them up, Raf. You've made them sound like they are really, really good.
Real Madrid, yeah.
WT Analyst says Gorgoza is a huge miss for them. He's 18 years old, very bright future. He would have offered them something exciting off of the bench. Okay, I'll try and get to some more of your comments as we go through. But there was one that I quickly wanted to show. And where's it gone? Not WT, no, I beg your pardon. Wake Up News. No more Sells in goal. He has conceded 12 already. I'm not quite sure I can go with you on that. I think if we put someone else,
we would have conceded more goals than 12 if Sells wasn't in goal.
There you go. Oh, that's come from somewhere. Biggest factor with okay. Biggest factor with set piece defending is consistent personnel and partnerships who all know their jobs. Paul says until last season we didn't have that. As we know, Ange had to use lots of different player combos. All right, okay. We've had a look at the opposition as we've talked about. Let's try and compare them in some way to our Nottingham Forest team with this.
I'm a Statman. Fazendo som, Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som, e Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som.
Danscape, over to you.
Thank you very much. So I will show you a couple of stats about Midtjylland. I don't have access to too much data because their domestic league isn't covered on FBref, unfortunately. So I'm referring back to how they performed in the Europa League last season, which is probably sort of a better comparison anyway. And I'm comparing us in red to them in green. They played 10 matches last season in the Europa League. They did get through to the kind of knockout playoff round, but they didn't get through that in the end. So they won 3, drew 2 and lost 5, scoring 12 and conceding 16 in those games last season. So fairly tight. Lost half the games, managed to get something out half the games. I think they'll be coming into this one with no pressure, really. They won't be expecting anything from this game. So they'll come and try and do their job and upset us, I think, and not worry too much if they don't get anywhere. Interesting in terms of style of play as a team in that Europa League. So if you look at the ones I've sort of highlighted on the left in terms of possession, right down in the bottom 3% of teams for possession. So they aren't going to come and try and play us at our own game as we play at the minute. As you can see, we're so far in the league, we're kind of in the top half for possession-based play. Counter-attacking football, score very highly on that. That's what we can expect them to do as a threat. They're also quite entertaining, though. Like I think Raf touched on in their domestic league. They brought that into the Europa as well, insofar as there tends to be a lot of goals and a lot of chances in their games. So I think we could be in for something reasonably exciting, even if it's a little bit one-way traffic. Housery score right.
Where do you think you're going, shithouse?
Yeah, they'll bring that energy over from Scandinavia. Set pieces, yeah, did okay with that. Kind of middle of the road for set pieces in terms of Europa League. And if you look on the right, they are good on the wings. They are good at playing long balls. They are good at crashing the box, and they are good at defending their own box. That's where they kind of stood out last time in the Europa League, more so than being able to really create many chances and finish off their chances too well. So, there's threats there. Like I say, I think it could be quite similar to the Sunderland game, albeit I guess the quality might not be there in terms of in terms of the play that we might find a few more mistakes and a few more opportunities against them. And then the second comparison is just, obviously, look, this is just one game for each team so far this season. So this is their game against Graz in the Europa League and our game against Real Betis. But you can see their performance against Graz was very much a smash and grab, right? They beat them 2-0, but they didn't dominate that game. They took their chances. They hit them on the break, and they kind of they won it that way. And they did it with set piece, a good set piece score, good crazy gang scores, lots of fouls, lots of disruption, lots of long balls, lots of S-housery. And a good goalkeeping performance, a really good goalkeeping performance, a really good finishing, Julian box defending, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's what we've got to expect. We've got to expect a game where we are really going to put the pressure on. Hopefully, what we're not doing at the end of it is saying, if only we'd took our chances again. In which case, we will be frustrated. But if we do take our chances, I think we will get them, and we can deal with what they throw at us.
Outstanding stuff as ever. Thank you very much indeed. And Garry in the comments says, I bet Ange becomes a much better coach once he gets Murillo back, even better with Luiz, and probably outstanding once Ola is back. And that could be quite true. That having your top players available to you makes obviously the team better and makes it more likely that you pick up the win. However, football is a lot in general. There's a lot of games to play. It's a long season, and we're going to have injuries along the way. So we've talking about the depth in the squad. He's got to get it right. He's got to get the players on the pitch that can win the game, because we are now down to the point where, as much as we've been throwing lots of pressure at teams and lots of chances into opposition boxes and goalkeepers against us making decent saves and sometimes really good saves, we're not scoring enough goals. So after the break, we'll be having a look at who we might pick in our team on Thursday night. But it is lunchtime, so it must be time for this.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Everyone knows about the cheese. 10% off when you quote Talking Reds. All right. Brucey says, is it just me, or do Midtjylland sound like Burnley? Yeah, I think you could make a case that they've got lots of similar traits. They're a team that we've talked about that will look to set pieces as a way to engineer goal opportunities. They will sit and look to hit us on the counter. So they'll play against us it sounds like, how we played against teams last season. We are in a new era, though, Richard, and we are looking at our team now as to who might take to the field. Here comes the FOT mob. So this is the team that started against Sunderland. It's not the team from the last Europa match. It's the team the last time out. I always come to you first, and I'm back again, Richard, with you to give us your team, what you think the team should be. So again, it's really a mixture of what you think it might be, but really, what do you want to see now? I'm asking you to pick your team for Midtjylland.
In this case, I'm going to start with the back line. Some of this is hope-oriented. But I'm going to say that I want Nico on the left, replacing Zinchenko. And I'm going to go, I know we're trying to not get too out of, or into this sort of consistent pattern of switching people out, a bunch of players out. But then I'm going to put Savona on the right. I think this is a match that he comes in and plays. I know they've got threats on the wings. Raf talked about some of the dynamism that they've got. I'm hoping for Morato he didn't play poorly, but I want Murillo back in there, because we need to be a little bit at full strength with some of our key players so that we get a victory, because it can mean a lot to how things move forward in terms of the momentum factor. Milenkovic in that other center back position. I'm going to take Dominguez out, and I'm going to actually insert Ryan Yates. I think we need our club captain to make an appearance. I think if you get S-Housery and you get smash and grab, then maybe you need a guy who matches the other team with S-Housery. As I said, I like the height and his capability in terms of heading, potentially to add some value to the set pieces. just that presence on the pitch. It is so hard to keep playing Elliot Anderson, even though he's brilliant, when we don't want to wear him out. But I just can't take him off the pitch at the given moment. We need to win. We need to score goals. We need his creativity. We need his presence to drive us forward. On the left, on that left wing, I'm actually going to insert Callum Hudson-Odoi. Give Dan Ndoye an opportunity to come off the bench. Morgan Gibbs-White in the 10. I am not going to advocate for that guy getting dropped at any point other than to rest him at this stage, but Morgan Gibbs-White in the 10. And I'm actually going to put Amari Hutchinson on the right. I think he showed us enough in the last match to want to... I know... Oh, that's right. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Well, forgot about that. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. You forgot about that one.
Yeah, I did. That was wishful thinking. You know what? I'm going to leave Backwell right there because I want to see that guy. We keep talking about players, getting players and playing them into form with others. I'm just going to let Backwell try to work through some challenges, but I think he's just got enough capability on the right to provide. Yep, there you go. That's 100% where I was going. I just think he's perfectly suited for this match. I think he's going to create matchup issues for Midtjylland. I think he's just his movement and the way that he links play up, the way that he's finishing right now. We need that kind of goal scoring capability because clearly that's been absent for some of these matches. So other than obviously when he's played, so that's my team right now. That's what I'd want to see. Whether that will happen or not, there's a lot of potential pitfalls to that. Meaning Murillo may not play just because they want to save him for Premier League. Against Newcastle and don't want to risk maybe injuring or aggravating something further, but that's where I'm headed right now. I just think that we need to lock down that right side because Raf was talking about how they're, I think, one of their best wingers. I don't know if it was Castillo or I can't remember the name of the individual, but that he's a problem. And so why not match that with a guy who's better at defending than Zinchenko? Okay,
so yeah, Hutchinson can't play because he's not in the squad. I'm going to jump in and say that you've pretty much gone with the back line that I had in my head. I also was thinking, look, let's take Zinchenko out, Nico back to the left, Savona on the right. We want Murillo back in, of course, but again, I'm half expecting him not to be fit. I still just think that this is a little bit more serious than what we thought. I sincerely hope I'm wrong. I hope he's back. I'm taking Bakwa out and I'm putting Sangare in, and I'm changing the formation because I'm with Raf. Let's call it a 4-3-3. It's not really going to be a 4-3-3, but for the purposes of this, I'm just calling it a 4-3-3. Sangare, Anderson, and Yates in the midfield. Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi and Igor Jesus. I mean, Gibbs-White can go over to the right. It can be very similar to what it was against Real Betis last week with the 4-1-4-1. Sangare can sit deep. Gibbo can go over on the right more. Ryan Yates and his S-Housery certainly in this game. I think you're absolutely right. Yates at home, this is a game that's built for him. It's the kind of team that's built for him. If we liken him to a Burnley or to a Sunderland, because there's even a good call that Ryan could have come into the game against Sunderland and really kind of helped us out on that occasion. So that's kind of where I'm at as well. So just to kind of recap for those that can't see it, we're saying, Richard and I, that we want Sells in goal with a back line of Williams on the left and Savona on the right. We want Murillo back in, of course. If it's not him, it'll be Morato, Milenkovic alongside. I'm going Sangare, Anderson, Yates in the midfield. I'm going Hudson-Odoi, Igor Jesus up top, Gibbs-White as well. All right, Danscape, come to you now. Got any idea? Last year you had no clue, or last time you had no clue. What kind of clue have you got this time? I think you're muted, buddy, so I think you have to take yourself off if you want to tell us about your team.
I've gone. I'm back.
We're back.
Look, the thing that became clear to me after the Sunderland game is that the Europa League is everything for us this season. I think we've talked and we've joked about the whole would you take 17th and win the Europa League? Well, I kind of think if we all our target is for the league, I believe, based on what I'm seeing, is to avoid getting into a relegation battle. That's about it. I don't think we're expecting to try and qualify for Europe in the league. I don't think that's the goal. It'd be nice to do it. But I think what we're trying to do is win the Europa League so that it's the shortcut, isn't it? It's the route to Champions League football. It's the route for Mr. Marinakis to say that he delivered on that Market Square kind of promise about trophies in Europe and all that stuff. So I think we will see the strongest possible team start this game. So hopefully Murillo, hopefully well, I suppose hopefully there's not many other hopefuls, I guess, in terms of I think Douglas Luiz is out. Otherwise, he probably would be in there. So, but I think you'll probably see Williams right, Zinchenko left for me. I think you'll see, because Douglas Luiz is missing, maybe it turns into a 4-1 sort of 4-1 formation. But I think it probably ends up being more like the 4-3-3. Yeah, I mean, let's put it on for something different. Sangare sitting there. You have Anderson and Yates in the middle, and Gibbs White on the right. That's set up similar to what we had, but Yatesy being tasked to do the Douglas Luiz sort of role for this one in terms of getting a bit more box to box and offering a bit of threat in the box as well, which I think could work, could make sense. We'll have a lot of the ball. I think it's good to have those options in possession, you know, players that will keep hold of the ball well and be able to move it around the pitch. But I think I'm clearer on this selection because I just think what we saw from the Sunderland game is that the league is our second priority, and we will rotate for that. So we'll rotate for Newcastle. If we're worried about fitness, let's just hope that we get 3-0 up in this game, for example, to then be in a position where we can start to take some of these players off and rest them for Newcastle. But I just think we'll see a better performance as well as this team against Midtjylland, because we'll have spent time really thinking about this game and really trying to gear it up to be our, a win and make sure we're comfortable in that league table in Europa.
I agree with you that I think Mr. Marinakis has identified the Europa League as his top target. Go out all out and win that. That is the number one target. I don't think that it's a case of abandoning the Premier League, because I think we are in danger of going down. Definitely, because the three teams that have come up are offering something. They really are offering something. So we could be one of the three that are already in the Premier League to go down if we don't pull our socks up. I think Ange made the changes he made because I think he didn't give Sunderland the respect that perhaps he should have done. And I think bringing Dominguez in for his first minutes of the season without any action off the bench, in hindsight, was a really bad move. As much as he has got an engine, a natural engine, you know, there still has to be an element of reintroducing the player into the team. It wouldn't surprise me if he puts Dominguez in to start again. I'm not saying that's what I want, but I'm just trying to get into his head for a moment. But in terms of the league, like I said I'll take 17th in Europa all day long. If it happens to be that, then that's what I've asked for. But in terms of this match, I think it is a must-win. I think it is now a must-win game. 6th game in charge for Forest. If you don't get a win against Midtjylland at home under the lights, and I think, you know, it's going to ramp up the pressure. Raf, you're the midfield engine sort of master. Where are you at with the team you want to see on Thursday night, mate?
No surprise. Midfield 3. Definitely. And I don't think you need to change the personnel, actually. And I'll explain why. So, yeah, Hudson-Odoi on the left, and we're going to have I am actually going to keep Gibbs White on the pitch because I really liked what I saw from him first half against Betis. And I'm never an advocate of putting him anywhere other than the middle of the pitch. But actually, he was getting quite a lot of joy out there. And there's no point actually playing players on the wing, I don't think, that are going to try and hit the byline and cross, because they're going to double down. If they are playing a wing backs, then they're going to have 2 people marking each of the wingers on either side. So you need to cut in, which Callum does quite a lot and Morgan will do as well. Backo would work perfectly fine doing that with him cutting in off the right-hand side as well. But I think Morgan gets a chance to kind of show, look, I need to be in that team for Newcastle. I'd have Sangare in the middle. I'd have Anderson on the left and have Yates on the right. I would start Zinchenko because that then gives you the ability to push Zinchenko into the Anderson spot, Anderson to then go in and sit behind Jesus and then do some creativity, maintaining your 3 in midfield, but offering more tools to unlock that defence as much as possible. We really need Murillo back. Otherwise, with Murato Milenkovic, Nico is going to have a lot of responsibility of trying to probably track their forward back and Samsir as well when they're breaking, which is not ideal if he's being used like he is most of the time as an out-and-out winger by Ange. So that's my one fear, but I would still set up like this because we've just got to be smart and deal with the 3 instances. I hope it's like this, the 3 instances where they get a good break, and it's how we deal with that. And that's what Murillo's great at. When we're being broken upon, he's the one that's trailing back, basically running backwards or looking over his shoulder and managing to either slow the person up or block it. Without Murillo, it becomes a bit of a danger. But that's kind of why I'd go. And by the way, Jesus, as far as I'm concerned, he is now the number one striker until he stops scoring. It's harsh on Wood, but as you've seen, Wood at the moment can't hit a barn door, unfortunately. He missed that header from the 6-yard box, which he could do blindfolded last season. He's not on form. And right now, I'm not of the advocate of playing players to get them into form. You play your form players until we get that win.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think anybody is in any doubt that Igor Jesus should start on Thursday night. I'll repeat what I've been saying. I was in favour of Wood starting on Sunday. And actually, he had chances to justify that selection. The fact is that he is off the boil. Igor Jesus has looked lively, and the 2 goals last week against Betis hopefully will hold him in good stead when Midtjylland come into town. All right, guys, we're nearly done. If the game gets tight late on, let's say it's 0-0 or 1-1, what are the tactical levers you'd expect from Ange, Richard? What's he going to do? I mean,
thanks for that question.
5 attackers.
Yeah, I mean, there's obvious things. Everyone in the comments, everyone listening is all crying out, going, "We all know what he'll do." Yeah, like Raf just said, he'll just put on a load of attackers. But he's got to be more nuanced than that, surely. I mean, if it's a 0-0 going into the 80th minute, you know, is it a case of maybe a formation tweak or even higher pressing, or higher pressing? What do you think?
I think the only time that he may have learned his lesson a little bit is once he gets up, he does shift and try to defend a little bit more. And maybe, you know, the way that he's going to manage from that halfway line back, he's going to hopefully adapt a little bit in that sense. I think the situation or scenario you're explaining to me just plays right into his hand, that I just need to go full board, my usual approach, and just come at them with everything that I have. I think that's what I hope will be the case as it relates to if we're 2-0 up again, like we were, or 2-1 up, for example, like we were against Betis. It feels like that's the moment where he can start to switch gears a little bit. Obviously, it depends on where we're at in the match. You know, if we get to that late period where we're hitting the 75th, 80th minute, so to speak, maybe 70th minute, you start to kind of bet in a little bit more and play a little bit more defensively oriented, which I understand is completely denying his Ange approach and the way that he manages things. But it just feels like there's going to be times throughout the season, and we've seen it, where he needs to do that. You know, maybe, you know, there were times where Nuno would do that too early. There were times where he'd wait too long. So, you know, finding that right balance of doing that kind of thing. But as I said, if it's in a 0-0 situation and we've got, you know, 20 minutes left in the match, I have a feeling he's going to go all out, right? He'll play 3 strikers, which something to that effect, or some crazy sort of approach to try to drive the team forward. But I just don't. I think that's been the knock on him, right? Is that the tactical sort of nous it's MIA at times, because he just has such immense belief in what he does and his ability to set players up to score goals. But clearly, we haven't seen that yet. And when those do come, we need to take advantage of that and bet in a bit more.
Paul Morley says Yates to start on Thursday. Biggest question for him is whether Anderson gets a bit of a rest ahead of Newcastle. Anderson and all the hype, Wake Up News says he's getting played every minute, giving 1 assist. That is not acceptable. Richard Ottaway says resting Ando is a good shout. He can come on in the second half if needed. Got to say, guys, not for me. Anderson plays on Thursday. He plays full 90 minutes. He plays on Sunday against Newcastle, going to the international break thereafter. These players should not be tired at this point. You know, there's games coming quite close to each other, but not wishing to sound too much like Garry Birtles, but play your best team and you play them at this point in the season. You know, I think he's our best player, and I think he has to play. Okay, fine. If we get to 80 minutes and we're cruising, then obviously you make your changes and you be sensible. But for me, Anderson starts the game on Thursday, he starts the game on Sunday. Danscape, what happens if we lose? What's the fan narrative going to be? Is it a case, you know, it's already getting pretty toxic, and for me, like I've said on here, guys, can everyone just chill the F down a little bit? Okay, Ange's 5 games in. We can all see the signs are there. As much as you might want to be beating the drum, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Let's get behind him in the team. But We lose on Thursday. Where's this going to go?
Not quite thought that through. I don't think we'll lose. I really don't. But if we do, from what I've said before, Europa League is the complete target, then this is where the pressure starts to mount on him, right? I think he'll get away with inconsistent form in the league as long as we're not too far in trouble, because the season's long. You can turn a season around in the second half of the season. You can, there's ways and means of recovering your league form. But in Europa League, I think he'll be judged very harshly from above if we don't deliver and deliver a good performance as well. So I sort of don't see us losing. I really hope we don't, because I don't know where you go from here. Because yes, he still needs more time. You talked about set pieces. How many days has he had to work on set pieces? Probably like 2 hours or something since he's come in. Like, I mean, there's no real time to judge him on anything. But at the same time, you see other managers do this within the same scenario, in the same situation. So how long can you give him without beating teams that, we should be beating in terms of where we are and the players we've got, and just getting some kind of tune out of them should deliver results, regardless if they're perfect, regardless if it's the right style of play. There should be enough to get something over the line against some of the teams we face. So this is the game where the pressure, if we lose this one, regardless of atmosphere, the pressure on him really does mount up. And then it's a case of we've just got to sit tight till after that international break and just see if there's some kind of improvement then. I don't see him going, because what else are you going to do? Like, who are you going to get? What are you going to change? What benefit are you going to get at this point in time from doing that? I think you've got to hope that he's got something in his locker we haven't really seen to be able to grind out some results to buy him time. And if he can't do that, then he really is, a bad appointment.
And when it comes to set pieces, the team know how to defend them. I mean, they've been good at doing it for a while. Don't you want your leaders in that defence to step up and get things organised? Milenkovic is a leader. Some are asking for him to be the captain of the team. And if in those defensive moments he's not able to organise the line properly, and Sells should be in command of that as well when you're organising your wall and organising things at a set piece. They're the players that are on the pitch at the moment, in that moment. And just how much coaching is being done outside of matches and in training, who knows? Do we have a set-piece coach anymore? I don't even know if we do or not. I don't know if Ange has brought one with him. I saw a comment earlier that apparently Ange doesn't do tactics, which I find baffling. If that is the case, apparently Eric Dyer had come out and said something like that. But again, that's just pure hearsay. And so, therefore, a lot of what takes place on the pitch, Raf, in the moment, has to be down to the players, doesn't it? I mean, can't put it all on Ange Postecoglou's shoulders. There is a transition happening in terms of style of play. He's working with a bunch of players that he didn't sign. He came into the club 3 games in. The games that he's managed have all come really thick and fast, one after another. 4 away games in 3 different countries, as he's pointed out, if you include Wales, travelling to and fro, very little time on the training pitch. I mean, he's got a lot of credit in the bank, surely still, hasn't he, Raf?
I don't think he's got any credit. Like, he hasn't done anything at the club. But
in terms of being a new manager,
how big's his overdraft? How big's his overdraft? For me, I wasn't. 4 away games to start off with was just like, they are what they are. Like, he's just got to get in and got to know the players. For me, the judgment started at Sunderland. That is your home game. You're 5 games in, and that's when you should start seeing something. That is a big fat loss right there. This is the next home game, and we have got a squad that is 10 times more valuable than that team. It is unacceptable to lose this. It is unacceptable not to win this game. That is what will be in Marinakis' mind. Am I turning into a mini Marinakis? I don't know. That'd be a cool thing to be. But for me, like, it's like Dan said, I just haven't even got in the headspace of we don't win this, because if we don't, I'm not, me silver linings, but I don't know where to go. I don't know where I'm finding this silver lining from, because we need to give him more time. But those 2 games at home are ones you go to the bookie and bet your house on the fact that we win. So that's when the alarm bells really, really sound.
So Midtjylland come to the City Ground, and we've talked about their record in terms of their own league, which is by no way, shape or form as much of a standard as probably our championship, I would say, than anything else. but they've got European experience. They've been playing in European competitions, whether it's Europa or Conference, over the last set of years. And so they're going to bring an element of that with them. And as Dan, I beg your pardon, as Raf pointed out, their new coach is no mug by the sounds of things. I'm just worried that they might smell fear a little bit. They might smell a chance, an opportunity, given the backdrop of what's happened with Nuno leaving the club, Ange coming in, and the start not being what we wanted. I still try and add as much context to it and say, look, the 4 away games, the Arsenal game so quick, you can't include the Arsenal game, surely. The Swansea game, again, there's so much going on there, and we could have won that 5 times over. You know, the Burnley game are much, much better. And that was really his first game where he's had the players for a while, a good point away from home, followed by the Betis game, which again, everyone was really, really happy with, you know. But of course, when you lose against Sunderland in the way that you did, the media and the TV personalities and the TalkSport hosts, they're all kind of ramping it up. And Andy Goldstein on TalkSport says, Ange will be gone by Christmas because he's a rubbish manager and all this kind of stuff. All that kind of groundswell seems to kind of like erupt. And you get fans of all clubs paying attention to it. You get fans of Nottingham Forest in their droves paying attention to it. Not many people wanted him in the first place. So it all kind of builds and builds and builds into like a pressure bubble. And I'll be there on Thursday night. And I am really excited about being there because I really think that we will win this game. We should be winning this game. But I just worry, Richard Spray, that Midtjylland come and they can smell fear and they get the sniff of an opportunity. They keep things tight in the opening half. We struggle to get
together as a cohesive unit. But how, and this is the thing that I think Chris Aylmer was talking to me about the other day, and I think Dad and I talked about this a little bit. As a manager, your job certainly is tactics, schematics, setting teams up to be successful, leveraging the skill sets of your players and playing to their strengths to a degree, putting them in position to succeed. But it's also about how you motivate them to stay locked in. It doesn't matter who your opposition is. And I think this is where Ange has to focus his efforts as well. It's on set pieces. Yes, it's on defensive stability, but it's also on how you manage the personalities and make sure. That's why a guy like Ryan Yates is so critical, right? Because even on the pitch, if Ange doesn't do it very well in the dressing room, Ryan Yates is gonna do it on the pitch. So, and as is someone like Morgan. I mean, Morgan gets fired up. Anderson's become a very vocal guy, right, at his young age. So we need those kinds of things to happen because they need to treat this like they're playing Real Madrid or they're playing somebody better than them, and that they cannot deviate from maintaining that mental fortitude, because these are professional footballers who've logged a lot of sweat equity, and they've done a lot of time on the pitch together, enough to where at least the majority of them can function, and they know each other and they know what they need to do. And so that needs to be evident on Saturday. On Thursday, what I want to see clearly is it's about just a full 90 minutes of locked in, intense football as much as humanly possible. Because I think by setting that as the standard for going forward, not just in terms of the wins and losses, that's essential. The results matter, as we all keep saying, but it's about the mentality. How are we going to take that forward to the Premier League? Because we've let teams like Sunderland, I think Paul's used the word entitlement. We've let teams that are not better than us, to Raf's point, to Dan's point, these teams are not better than us from a quality of player and personnel standpoint. So we've got to let that be known, not in an arrogant way, not in an overconfident way, in a way they call it in the US mama mentality. Bruce probably knows what I'm talking about. It's what Kobe Bryant came with on the court. It's what Michael Jordan came with on the court. It's what these guys who are elite, legendary players do. So if these guys are elite and at the top of their game, they need to maintain that going forward, and they need to carry that into the Premier League. Because if they do that, I think we're going to see a very different outcome, because that's been what's missing at times. It's like we give a 40-minute segment that's just amazing to watch, and then we just disappear, and that can't happen. It's the mentality that needs to change.
The Melzy Wolf says it's all about the players stepping up and getting it done for sure. And I saw other people talking about, what's the point in getting rid of Ange if the players are still the same. Edward Wyvos says the odds say the chances will eventually be converted. Okay, we're out of time. We're going to go round. And Dan, I'm going to ask you for which player you want to see something from on Thursday? Who needs to step up for you? I want to pick out one player that you think maybe hasn't done enough yet, that if they step up, can actually really help us towards victory, along with your score prediction, please.
Well, it's got to be Hudson-Odoi. I think we expect him to start. I think he brings a lot to the team, but he has to start delivering those goals and assists, doesn't he? That's been sort of missing for a while. So I think it's got to be Hudson-Odoi that can unlock a tight game. Certainly against Sunderland, it's one of those, they're going to sit in, they're going to be compact. At some point, you need a bit of magic. Sometimes you just need a screamer from 20 yards, 30 yards, whatever it is, to unlock those games. And then you kick on, and then the momentum changes, and your whole season can run on the back of those little moments. So hopefully him. What was the other question?
Score prediction.
Score prediction. I think we win it 3-1. I think we do come out the traps and we really take it to them, and then maybe we concede one late on as per standard, but I think we hold on. I'm going 3-1 again, as I did against Sunderland, and that backfired, so let's try again.
That's all right. What about you, Raf? Which player for you needs to step up and really show their stripes and can really do it for us if he gets going? And what's your score prediction too, brother?
I was going to go Callum. I don't think he's been playing badly this season, contrary to what everyone else is saying. It's just what Dan says. It's the actual tangible output in terms of goals and assists that needs to clock up. It's between him and... Do you know what? Weirdly, if Ryan Yates has an 8 or a 9 game, I think that is game-changing for the outcome of this game. If he can actually produce one of the best games he's ever had, not give away the ball, get in the box and get his shooting boots on like he has, command everything, I actually think potentially that's the game changer for me. Weird. I was going to go Sangare, but I actually think Yates. Yep. If Yates comes and brings it.
Score?
2-1 to us.
Okay. Richard Spray, which player is the one that you've got your eye on, hoping to do things for us and your score prediction, mate?
Well, I'm going to go with some support from the chat because he was on my mind. I think what has been unfortunate is the unevenness of performance from Morgan at times. And maybe it's just an expectation level that we all have, given what he's getting paid, given what we went through to keep him on the club. What Marinakis wants to see from him, the fact that he is the captain, he is wearing the armband when he's on the pitch. So I kind of want to see that he sets the tone, and it'd be great to see a couple of assists from him or something to that effect, because he had a beautiful ball, as we know, in that last European match to unlock Jesus and get him going and scoring in that match. And so I think it will make a big difference if his performance levels, to Raf's point, when he looks at the different ratings and SofaScore, he's one of the lower ones, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to see that hit that 7 or above sort of level consistently. Because when that happens, I think Dan's even said this to me offline, when Morgan Gibbs-White is right and he's at his peak and he's doing what we know he's capable of, we're a better football club when that happens, clearly. So I want to see that kind of performance. I want a Brentford-like performance from him, because I think if we do that, that makes a world of difference to the way the team views where we're at. And I'm going to go from a score prediction standpoint. I just want to see a domination, and maybe this is again wishful thinking, but I want to see a 3-0 win. I just want to see us control and show our quality, and as everything I just mentioned. So I won't be repetitive there, but 3-0.
Okay. I think you've all picked out really important players, and when they all fire, or if one of them fires, you've made great cases for them all. Callum definitely has had a good season in some ways, but in other ways it's been disappointing. We can see him turn a corner, absolutely. Raf, bang on about Ryan Yates. I was thinking the same thing myself. We get an 8 or 9 out of him, then we're cooking. Morgan Gibbs-White, too indifferent. I liked his performance better against, a little bit better against Real Betis in the first half. In fact, a lot better. And in fact, when he came off the bench at Sunderland, he was bright. He looked like he was brighter, but we need him to turn. The player I would pick, I'm going back to my man, Nikola Milenkovic. Last season, he didn't drop below a 9 out of 10. Many times he was a 9.5 out of 10. This season so far, I struggle to get him above a 6 or 6.5. And I think when he's on form and he's back to being the Serbinator and back to dominating and back to leading that back line and back to getting, all of them working in tandem. And it's been tough when you've had no Ola Aina there and Nico switching and bringing Zinchenko in. He's going up to play as a striker half the time. And you've got Morato coming in. It's tough. It's tough. But when Milenkovic steps up and when he gets them all fucking back in line and making sure that back line is solid as a rock, then we're sorted. We won't be conceding the goals, the stupid goals from set pieces. He won't be getting turned when he shouldn't be. So, Milenkovic for me, step up. We get him rocking and rolling, and I'm certain that we will win a game of football very, very quickly. My score prediction is 3-0 as well. I had 3-0 in my head. Clean sheet. Let's smash them. There's no reason why we can't beat this team. So I'll be there. Danscape will be there. Raf, I think you'll be there as well. I think you're going as well, Raf. So
I'm going, and I'm staying overnight as well. The game's going to finish at 10. So I was just like, I hope we get a win. I want to get back in the nav. I want to have a drink with some people. So I'm going to stay overnight and go back the next morning.
Well, I won't be. I'll be driving back. But yeah, the three of us will be up. Unfortunately, Richard's not going to be there until the Man United game in about a month's time. The spray is flying over. We're out of time, guys. Thanks so much for being with us. If you are in the nav or other pubs and you see us, please come and say hello. It'd be great to meet some of you. Keep your chins up, guys. The team needs you. And Ange is your manager at the moment. He needs you as well. As much as you might find that difficult, get behind him, get behind Forest, and let's push for a win on Thursday night in the Europa League. See you soon.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.